Hello, welcome to today's presentation on Healthcare Hospital. My name is Elena Circuit. At Healthcare Hospital, we have lost half of our staff and have had to hire travel techs that are costing the hospital more. It also increases the workload on those who have stayed since they are the ones who have to train the new incoming techs. One of the main complaints from the surgical techs that leave Healthcare Hospital is that they are willing to pay more for travel techs than they do the staff, that if we only invested that money into those that are actually employed by Healthcare Hospital, there wouldn't be such animosity and disgruntledness. Surgical techs are one of the most sought after professionals in the healthcare industry. Yet most people don't know what a surgical technologist is. In 2019, surgical techs held over 100K jobs in the US, and this is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There is also a projected 7% employment growth. Surgical techs are the backbone of the operating room. Being the right hand of the surgeon and a patient advocate, they are the ones who have to know how to do multiple surgeries and be able to function in multiple roles. We can't just hire people off the street. So why Healthcare Hospital is there such a high turnover in surgical technologists? How can Healthcare Hospital leadership improve workplace relations so that we can retain our experienced and knowledgeable staff? Even though pay was a huge concern for the staff, having leadership behind them and support them was paramount in retaining staff. Employees work harder and are less likely to quit their jobs when their values are consistent with the organization's values, when they are satisfied with their jobs, and when they have positive attitudes about the company and the work environment. That means that we as leaders have to be able to not just be patient advocates, we have to be staff advocates. We have to change the way that we are perceived by our staff members. Sometimes being a leader means that you have to change your leadership style when you're speaking to individuals, because they are individuals. It is said that to work in the operating room, one must have a strong personality. The only issue with that is that you have multiple strong personalities, and that can cause issues because people aren't generally willing to compromise when both parties believe they are correct. So in doing so, we have to reflect and we have to take a look at who we are as leaders. I went ahead and took the Jung typology test, and my results were the INTP. Now, what that means is that I'm 6% introvert, 25% intuitive, 19% thinking, and 12% perceiving. Now, extroversion and introversion, this tells us how likely a person is to be social or more of a spur-of-the-moment person. Sensing and intuition means that we are detailed orientated and we trust our judgment. Thinking and feeling, well, logic over feelings. Judging, perceiving. Decisive and planning over spontaneity and adaptability. Now, that's not to say that we cannot change how we do things. I think as leaders, that's one way we can look at how we grow and how we perceive things and people and situations. This comes into changing our leadership style. You have to communicate like you've never communicated before. People must feel the excitement of tomorrow instead of the pain of today. You can only accomplish this by talking honestly about both. Now, even though this quote addresses recession, it still pertains to how leadership needs to communicate with their employees. We as leaders need to be transparent and candid about our issues that directly and indirectly affect our employees. As leaders, we also have to be able to have two-way forms of open communication. Feedback enhances the effectiveness of communication process by helping to ensure that the intended message is one received. So that there is no miscommunication, we have to stop the line. We have to make sure that we communicate effectively, meaning that I'm not going to tell you what I expect of you and then turn away, do something else without realizing that you might not have understood how I wanted you to proceed. Now, going back to incentivizing our surgical techs to stay. Let's face it, everyone is motivated by something. However, money is a universal motivator for employees, whether it's because there is a commission-based system that motivates a person or because there is a bonus at the end of the road. Either way, being able to have a palpable reward for not just doing your job, but to go above and beyond what is expected helps. In one study, it was indicated that financial incentives interested 80% of personnel, while less than 50% showed an interest in non-financial incentives. So what does this mean? That means that yes, money motivated, but we have to find other factors to motivate our staff. Days off, maybe go home early. We have to look at this on a day by day. Of course, the operating room is very, very adaptable to changes. So we have to take into consideration that things happen, surgeries go longer than planned. So even though we try to get our techs to go home early, or we might not be able to give them a day off, but there are many other ways to incentivize our surgical techs for doing hard work. Now, trying to implement change means that we have to find a way to do it. I like to use Cotter's 8-step process, which means we establish a sense of urgency, we create a guiding coalition, we develop a vision and strategy, we communicate the vision of change, we empower our employees, we generate short-term wins, we consolidate the gains and produce more change, and we anchor new approaches in the culture. Now, let's get this right. No surgical techs, no functioning operating room. Without our surgical techs, we have to divert patients, which means losses in every aspect of healthcare hospital. We cannot serve the community if we are having to send out patients to other facilities more than an hour away because we do not have staff. If we can give lead roles to our surgical techs and create growth, and in turn will motivate techs to remain at healthcare hospital. By creating a lead role, we can also set expectation, designate duties that also come with an additional pay raise. Being a lead tech also means having the responsibility of being a leader within the profession and being a voice of concern that can be heard by all stakeholders. As previously stated, when surgical techs take part of meetings, they can also help the rest of the management team who may not be aware of the minutia that goes on in the operating room, and having someone who is directly impacted by the decisions of those will also help greatly in avoiding situations and may hinder progress and create animosity. Giving feedback about performance is one of the key elements of mentorship, coaching, supervision, and parenting. It contributes to conflict resolution and intimate relationships. Being able to move up on the ladder is important to everyone. So by giving the surgical techs a chance to grow within healthcare hospital, then we can also promote a sense of pride that with that improve our retention of surgical techs. So now we identified how and why we are losing our surgical techs. We have a plan, and now we must execute that plan. Sounds easy, but the reality is that there might be pushback, and this may not be enough to see immediate results. Take ownership of the original problem and help to navigate our employees through it. We must also be able to regroup them in the aftermath and enable them to keep moving forward. We as leaders must make the first attempts to reach out and advocate for our surgical techs. We must rebuild that trust. It is through effective internal communications that change implementers provide employees with better understanding of the content and rationale of change. Being honest and recognizing that the past failures will not hinder progress and incorporating the values of our staff is what is important to them will only help healthcare hospital to become better public servants and be able to continue to provide excellent healthcare to our community. Thank you so much for joining us.